am so excited today to be talking to author Richard Wall, and his newest book is called Fat Man Blues, and he's going to hold it up. Yay. Oh,
Hello.
look at that. Thank you so much for talking to me today, Richard.
Well, thank you for the invitation. I'm honoured.
Let's just take a moment and be really sad about Tom Petty.
Yeah, it's awful news. Terrible. Terrible.
I know. I wasn't ready for it, really. I don't know. I had seen him so many times in concert over the years. He was actually one of my first concerts when I was like 15, I think.
Yeah.
And he was doing Damn the Torpedoes. It was like 1980, summer of 80. And he had on this lime green silk shirt. And I still have the newspaper clipping from when it was in the local paper, because that's all I could really see. I was sitting so far back, but I could see his like lime green satin shirt, and really wasn't him as we got to know, but maybe him then. But I always thought when he was traveling around, I thought, you know what, I don't know if I want to see him anymore, because I saw him in his prime, and
I know exactly what you mean. Yeah. I saw the Rolling Stones about 20 years ago now.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure I'd want to go and see them again, having seen them. I mean, they were getting on a bit back then, so.
Right, I know. It's kind of like you don't want to ruin that moment of seeing them. But anyway, it came as a shock because it happened so fast and everything.
Yeah.
But I've been listening to a lot of his music, so.
That's a good thing.
That's a good thing. Okay, your book is so amazing.
Okay. Oh, thank you very much. Thank you.
So amazing. And I've been trying to decide how I want to talk about it, because when I read a book like yours, I don't want to give I do not do spoilers, and so I don't want to give anything away, okay? But the premise of this book is so cool, and when I started reading it, I was like, oh, what a great idea. And so, we'll just kind of tell everybody I'll let you tell everybody, like, what it's kind of about.
It's about an Englishman called Hobo John, calls himself Hobo John, who travels to Mississippi on a blues pilgrimage in the present-day Mississippi. And he gets offered the chance to go back to see the real blues as it was back in the 1930s. He's kind of in a situation where it's an offer that he can't refuse. So this guy called Fat Man, who makes the offer, takes him back to the 1930s, and he sees the life in 1930s Mississippi from the eyes of a 21st century Englishman. So that's the premise of the story. Yeah.
I know. Let me just show everybody the notes that I made from this book, okay? And I don't usually take notes, but I am like, I'm vaguely familiar with the blues. I love the blues. Okay. I love it. But as far as names go, and now that I have Sirius, I always go to the blues station. So I'm even more familiar. I mean, I think it makes it accessible for people to listen to the blues, and more accessible than, having to look them up on YouTube. And I love that channel. I mean, it's great. So the research you had to do for this. So he starts, so John, Hobo John, he starts, the way he goes through Mississippi. I was thinking about, as I'm reading it, about all the research that you had to go, because he's experiencing these people more in their like early stages, I would say. Yeah. Right? Yeah. Most of them, anyway.
Well, the research was, over here in England, we have a term called an anorak. Are you familiar with that?
No.
Oh, okay. It's basically it's somebody who's obsessed about something a real geek about something to the point of obsession.
Okay.
It's too long to explain what the term. But I'm a blues anorak basically. So a few years ago, my wife surprised me with a trip to Mississippi, my own pilgrimage to Mississippi. We met some American friends, and we were in a bar in Clarksdale, and talking to a fat man in the bar, and he said, Clarksdale these days is basically a theme park for white. He said it's a theme park for white folks like you. That's what he said. So we're talking about that, and it was a weird conversation. A bit later on, my friend said afterwards, he said the whole scene in the bar would make a great opening to a story. So I came back home and started writing it. Excuse me. in the meantime, as I say, I'm a blues anorak. I'm a complete blues obsessive. And so I've got loads of blues reference books and hundreds of CDs and songs and all sorts. So as far as research goes, the information was already there in my head and at my fingertips. All I had to do was just sort of try and pull it out and put it onto the page. And the thing my friend said that went great over into a story, and I thought, well, how would it be if somebody like me could actually go back to see life as it was? And of course, because when I first started listening to the blues, I had this romantic notion of a ne'er-do-well blues man wandering from town to town with a guitar on his shoulder, sort of playing, and everything was great. Of course, Mississippi for a black person in the 1930s, well, and today really, is not a very nice place. So I tried to sort of bring some realism into it as well. So a lot of the events in the book are based on anecdotes from old blues singers. And I spent many hours listening to interviews with Ferry Lewis, Howlin' Wolf, singers like that, both to get the stories, but also to get the nuances of the dialogue and how they speak. Because you probably realise already that Fat Man Blues is very much dialogue driven.
Yes.
And I wanted to sort of try and get the Mississippi colloquialisms into it as well. So I've said I was an anorak.
Well, okay, so I'm from Pennsylvania, right?
Mm-hmm.
And a couple of years ago, I had gone to New Orleans.
I've
never been there before. And then we made a trip back like 2 years later, and we decided to go to Mississippi because we were like driving around, and you know, it's so different. I never expected that part of our country to be as different as it was.
Sure. Yeah.
You know?
Sure.
So you know, I'd been to different parts of the country, but that was just, it really kind of blew me away how different that part of the South is from the East Coast part, like Georgia and South Carolina, you know. But anyway, so we went to Mississippi, and I could barely understand the English. The dialect was so thick. I was really, I mean, it's a little thick in New Orleans, but when you cross over, we went over the Sunshine Bridge into Mississippi, and you're hearing that drawl. Like, that's what I was thinking about when I was reading this, because I was like, and that's not even, you know, 1930s. I'm sure it was even more so than now. But you did get like, you know, and they do it kind of fast, so you have to really listen in to how they're talking, you know, and what they're saying. But you know, I can see how the research that I was thinking about is like getting these characters, knowing them well enough to understand, you know, because I'm assuming, I don't know these people that well, but I'm assuming you had it pretty dead on the things that they were doing at that time, you know, that it made sense for people who actually know a lot about these guys, you know?
Sure, yeah. Well, I say a lot of my research came from books by blues historians who spent their time in the 50s and 60s going around collecting old records from the 1930s. Mm-hmm. They would knock on doors in Mississippi, and then find people who actually knew these guys and talk to them, and so all these stories came into their reference books. So, as I said before, the events that I put in my book are based on events that actually happened and kind of conversations people had. So,
Right. Well, I'm sure, you know, most people, I think, maybe I'm assuming something, but like Muddy Waters is like their real intro into blues, because he then came to Chicago and kind of, I don't want to say normal, but it got more into the music stream than and then the real deep South in the Mississippi where they were hearing then. And there's I had just watched a really good movie on Muddy Waters, and I can't remember the name of it. I should have looked it up, but it was amazing for anybody who wants to know more about him. There is some good stuff. Then there's good documentaries on YouTube too, if they want to know more about. But I was watching a whole blues documentary this morning and listening to the blues and getting in the feel of it. And it's just, you know, as I get older, I think I have more of an appreciation for that music and how it formed the rest of music, because I'm a real music buff, especially starting in the 60s. But if you go back to the 30s, you can really hear where a lot of that stuff is coming from.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Say about getting into the blues, as an Englishman, I basically moved backwards from the Rolling Stones. My older brother was a big Rolling Stones fan, so I listened to all his records, and I sort of got some of the very early albums, Sticky Fingers and Beggar's Banquet. Got a blues covers. So this is a good sound, and so I did a research because I'm an anorak, researched everything, and ended up going back to sort of 1930s, and Charlie Patton, who was the guy who really started it all. So he's my hero. And he's my. If I could pick anyone to sit down and have dinner with, it would be Charlie Patton.
Oh, would it be?
Yeah.
I was going to ask you if it was. Let me see. I wrote a name down here. Oh, I was wondering, who you liked more, like Charlie Patton or Robert Johnson, because you brought up Robert Johnson too. And
yeah, Charlie Patton, because Robert Johnson. Everyone knows the Robert Johnson story, the whole Crossroads thing, the myth and everything.
Right.
But Robert Johnson basically learned at the feet of Charlie Patton and Sam House. Charlie Patton and Sam House would sort of play in these old shacks everywhere. And Robert Johnson would turn up and basically pester them to play with them. And I think Charlie Patton said, "No, you're no good." They sort of sent him out. So he disappeared for a year. Mm-hmm. And then came back, and he was suddenly this guitar playing god. And the myth was he sold his soul at the Crossroads, where he just spent a year practicing. Really, I think so. But no, Charlie Patton every time. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't think the documentary I was watching, Keith Richards was actually in it. As an expert, and I was thinking, I bet a lot of people don't realize like how much of their early music was the blues. They were known as like rock and roll. But if you go back, you can really hear it in their music.
Well, that was one of the original members of Brian Jones was a huge blues fan. Okay. Early blues like Elmore James and stuff like that. So he was the major influence, I think, in the Stones direction when they first started. And then when he kind of left them. Keith Richards took it over and continued it forward. Yeah,
carried it right, exactly. As a matter of fact, I remember when my son was learning the guitar. One of my sons plays guitar, and he said to me, "I like the Rolling Stones better than the Beatles because they're more bluesy." And I was like, "Wow, you even get that?" And he was young; he was like 10.
The son has taste.
Yes. So this book just came out. I wanted to look that up. Exactly. No, it's 2 years.
About 2 years ago, yeah.
October.
Yeah.
I saw the October date, and I was like thinking it just came out.
It was October on Kindle, and then in the following January in real life. So.
Yeah, and have you gotten really good reception from people on this? Because I think that it's amazing. Okay.
Thank you very much. You're very kind. But the reviews so far have been very, very good, very positive. It's been some very kind people who have taken time to go onto Amazon and say some very nice things. So one of the things that comes up a lot is I didn't know anything about the blues, but until I read this book, and so it inspired some people to go on to find out more about the people that I reference. So that's a good thing. It's kind of.
That's what I was thinking. I was thinking the same thing. I was like, with people don't realize the history of the blues, if they've read your book, they could really start to understand a little bit of where it came from, and like I said, and how the different characters contributed their part to the blues. And I learned so much. I went, like I said, I went on YouTube to actually look up the beginning, and I came up with this guy, and I'm not sure you mentioned him or not. W.C. Handy.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
He was like, they called him the father of the blues, father of the blues. And it's interesting how the music came about was, because they were working in cotton fields. I mean, they were, and singing, of course, their anthems. But what I love is like the instruments, because they had very little instruments to go with. So the beat of the songs they would get, and then start, like repeating phrases back and forth, and you can really hear that in the early music, A
lot of that, the field hands songs stem back to times of slavery when they would sort of sing stuff as a code to talk to each other about the slave owners without getting into trouble, and obviously they weren't allowed instruments, and so they would find their own ways of making the music. And of course, that's another tradition that sort of continued forward. So, blues is a real mishmash of all different styles and different references and reasons why things came about. So, and I love reading about it and sort of finding this stuff out. Yes. There's a lot of early Ledbury stuff.
Yes.
A lot of his songs are based on or come from kind of field songs, field hollers. So yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so let's talk about your other books. because when
Okay.
I saw, this is not your first book, so I wanted to tell everybody I saw that Hank Williams Cadillac. I was like, what was that about? I wanted to hear about that.
That was a short story that came out this year. Yeah. It's,
Okay.
I mean, I'm a old American card nut as well, so I think I was born in the wrong country in the wrong time. So,
That's right.
so yeah, and going back to the trip to Mississippi was my 50th birthday, and my friend who lives in Oklahoma, we were in Memphis. He'd organised a trip around Memphis in 1954 Cadillac for my birthday. It was like amazing. So the picture on the front cover of Hank Williams Cadillac is that car. That night he took me around, I just sort of messed around with it. So yeah, I just had this idea of a haunted car lot. All the people who've I can't give away. I can't explain it without giving it away. But cars of a certain with a certain story attached to them, shall we say?
Right.
And I thought, if you read the story, then you'll know what I'm talking about. But I don't want to give it away. But yeah, so I had this idea of these two down and out sort of turning up this car lot and be offered a chance to trade in their POS Honda for a swanky new Cadillac. You know, who wouldn't? Kind of thing. So we just sort of from there, yeah. Just a bit of fun.
Yeah, and you do write a lot of short stories, right? Because I was
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, finding Pops McCoy. That's the one I read today.
Oh, okay, right, yeah. That's in a collection called 5 Pairs of Shorts.
Yes.
Which is basically 10,000. There were 10,000 word stories that are sort of collated. When I used to work, we used to have a writing group, and we would sort of set writing exercises. We'd give a phrase or a sentence or a picture and say, right, okay, write 1,000 words on this. And I amassed probably about 15,000 word stories, and I put 10 of them together. Hence the 5 Pairs of Shorts. So,
right. Oh, that's awesome.
And,
do you like writing short stories better than writing a novel?
I enjoy it. It's an interesting question. I think they're equal. If I get an idea for a short story, then it has to come out, and I just have to write it down, and that's done then. Obviously, novel you need to sort of plan it more. Fat Man Blues, I had no idea where it was. I started writing, I had no idea where it was going beyond the first chapter, and that just kind of evolved organically. And I got about 3/4 of the way through. I thought I need to get an ending to this, so I ended up having to write the ending, what I thought it would be, and then work towards that because it had no direction. With a short story, I get an idea, and you can sort of thrash it all out and get it all done.
Right.
I'm now doing a second novel, which is going to be called Last Rites at Sing Sing, which is a bit of a departure from blues.
Wow.
But it's set in New York City in 1962, where a prison chaplain gives the last rites to a serial killer, and this guy says, "I'll see you again." And then the crime that he committed was so horrific that all details were sort of kept secret from the newspapers. And then, so this guy gets executed, and then 6 months later, the same crime happens again. They find a guy, the prison chaplain goes to give him the last rites, and he has the same conversation that he had with the guy 6 months previously. So it's...
Wow.
So,
I don't even know what to say. Especially after just reading this book, because I didn't see where it was going, okay? Like, that's why I'm like, I don't even want to tell people, because I'm like, just read the book, okay? You are an amazing storyteller, because the way that you wrapped it around. And you know what? Even for me, like, I think it's such a history thing, too, because even though I knew some of the things that happened during the 1930s in Mississippi, you gave a very clear picture of what that was like, and I think a lot of people would be shocked to learn, to read that, because it's not something that people talk about, or really know that much about,
That's right. When we were driving through Mississippi, our friends we drove through Money, Mississippi, where Emmett Till was murdered. Yeah. And they said it never ever gets talked about. No. Kind of within their kind of peer group. So.
No, they just kind of pass over it.
If it's opened a few people's eyes, then that's great. I mean, but I just hope people enjoy the story.
Yeah, well, exactly. I hope they do too. But okay, I found another really interesting fact out about you, because I did an interview this week and it was called The Taking of the K129 Sub. Okay, and
Okay.
then
Yeah.
I read you're a sub guy. I was like, no way! I'd done all
Yeah.
this research on submarines, and you are a sub guy.
I used to be, yeah, many years ago, yeah.
Right.
I served 22 years in the Royal Navy, and from age 18, I left about, good Lord, 15 years ago now. I left the Navy. But yeah, served on nuclear submarines.
So did you? Okay, so 22 years. What years would those have been?
1980 to 2002.
Okay, so that's a little bit later. But did you ever hear of the sub, the K129? It was a Soviet sub that was missing.
Yes.
You did?
I did, yeah, that's right. Yeah, read all about that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's a guy. I interviewed this guy who just wrote a huge book on it. His name's Josh Dean.
Okay.
And it was amazing because I never heard anything about it. And the ship they had to build to go and get that sub.
Cool. Yes.
But so tell me, what is it like on a sub? You can tell everybody.
If you imagine being on a subway with the windows blacked out, that's what it's like. You have to experience it to be able to sort of describe it. It's the old cliche: 99% boredom and like 1% adrenaline. It's what's it like on a submarine?
How long were you down? What was the longest you ever spent under?
Longest I spent underwater was, I think it was 6 or 8 weeks underwater. Okay. 2 months, yeah. So that's without fresh air or anything. So it was yeah.
Was that something that you really wanted to do?
No, not at all. Before I joined the Navy, I used to work in a factory on a production line, and I would sort of start work at 7:30 in the morning and finish at 4:30. So in the winter, you get half an hour for lunch. So in the winter time, I'd see half an hour of sunlight. I thought, wow, I'm not going to do this for the rest of my life. I'll go and join the Navy with visions of being on an aircraft carrier in the Far East, watching the sun go down. And I joined the Navy, and they said, "You'll go to submarines." So, oh, okay.
You're like, oh no, I'm not going to see any sunsets.
That's right. So, but no, I enjoyed it. It was good fun. Good fun.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, I just think it's such a coincidence because I'd done so much research this week on submarines. So I love that. But first of all, let's talk about, all right, so the name of your next book, when does it come out?
Well, I'm still writing at the moment. Hoping probably this time next year. That's what I'm fingers crossed and hoping for.
And does it have a title?
Last Rites at Sing Sing.
Last Right. Okay, I want to make sure that was the title so I can look for it. And if you would just hold up your book one more time so everybody can see the cover. It's crazy. I love that. Love that cover. That's crazy.
That's my guitar on my dining room floor.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. And I just want to thank you. I'm going to put the links for underneath here. And Richard, thank you for taking me on that ride. Thank you for writing that story so I could, enjoy it like I did and learn so much. And, and I spent the whole morning listening to the blues because of it. So it was amazing. Fantastic.
Well, thank you, Michelle. Thank you for the invitation and for your kind words. And I hope everyone else enjoys it.
Read the next one, so please contact me. Let me know when it comes out, okay?
I certainly will, yes. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. Have a great day, Richard.
Okay, same to you.
Okay.